I moved to this small town a month ago. I wanted a fresh start. I took a job at the local forensic lab. I thought it would be nice to leave the city behind. My apartment was creaky and smelled musty, but it was cheap. I thought I could make a life here. A few weeks in, I did a DNA test. I was just curious about where I came from. The results surprised me. I found names of relatives I never knew existed. At first, it felt exciting. I started searching for them online, but the more I found, the more confused I got. Their histories didn't line up. Strange details made my stomach twist. Then, weird things started happening. I thought I saw shadows moving across my window. At first, I dismissed it. Old buildings creak, right? But then I started hearing whispering coming from the neighboring apartments. It was soft, almost like a secret. I froze and listened, but I couldn't make out words. I thought I was just tired or imagining things. I spoke to a few coworkers. They had heard of my relatives. They told me I should be careful. Others had tried to find those family members and went missing. They said it seriously, but I laughed it off. I thought they were trying to scare me. Still, it nagged at me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was pulling at a thread that could unravel everything. One name caught my eye online. Someone who had gone missing under strange circumstances. They had a background like mine. My heart raced when I read about it. One night, I sat in front of my computer, hands shaking as I scrolled. Then an ad popped up. Investigate your family tree. Find the truth. I felt a chill run through me. I thought about shutting my laptop, but I couldn't. I needed to know more. It was like I was trapped, pulled in deeper. Later that night, there was a knock on my door. I jumped. I waited. My heart pounded. I wondered who it could be. So late. After a minute, I peered through the peephole. Empty hallway. I opened the door a crack and stepped out. The lights flickered overhead. I glanced down the dark hallway. I felt it, a presence lurking, watching me. A feeling washed over me like ice water. Then I heard it, a whisper. Emily. I froze, fear gripping me. My blood ran cold. I turned toward the sound. Hello? I called, but there was nothing, just silence. I stepped outside, heart racing. The hallway felt endless. Then I looked outside. The night was clear. No one was there. I rushed back into my apartment and locked the door. I couldn't explain it. I wanted to forget everything. But the whispers kept echoing in my mind, and the names in my family tree wouldn't let me go. I didn't know if I should keep searching or just run. I felt trapped in a web of secrets, and I had no idea who or what was behind it all. The next day, I barely slept. I kept replaying the whisper in my mind. Who was calling my name? Why did it feel like they were in my apartment? I couldn't brush it off anymore. I needed answers. I decided to go to the local library. Maybe I could find out more about my mysterious relatives. The librarian was an older lady with kind eyes. I approached her with a shaky smile and asked about the family I was researching. She looked troubled when I mentioned the names. Be careful, dear, she said. Those families have a dark history. Very dark. I felt the chill wrap around me again. What do you mean? I pressed, hoping for more context. She hesitated, then nodded toward a back room. There are some old newspapers there. You might find what you're looking for. Her eyes warned me not to delve too deep, but I couldn't resist. I entered the dusty room and began sifting through the archives. As I flipped through pages, the stories started to unfold. Murders, disappearances, and unexplained phenomena. The deeper I went, the more my stomach twisted. My blood ran cold when I found an article about a woman who had vanished without a trace. She shared a last name with me. That evening, a sense of dread washed over me. I rushed back to my apartment. The hallway felt darker than usual, shadows clinging to the corners. I hurried inside, locking the door behind me. I turned on all the lights, hoping for some comfort, but the whispers returned, louder this time. Emily. I jumped, heart racing. I covered my ears, trying to drown them out, but it was no use. They were inside my head. I paced my small living room, trying to think clearly. What if these whispers were warnings? What if digging deeper into my past had unleashed something I couldn't control? Then I heard a sound, faint scratching at my window. I froze, holding my breath. My logical mind told me it was just the wind, but as I approached, my gut twisted with fear. I pulled back the curtain slowly. That's when I saw it. A figure outside, partially hidden by the trees. I couldn't make out any features, but I knew it was watching me. My breath caught in my throat. "Who are you?" I called out, the words shaky and desperate. No response, just a stillness that felt heavy in the air. I stumbled backward, heart racing, and grabbed my phone. I needed to call someone. But then, just like that, the figure vanished into the darkness. Feeling all at once violated and terrified, I sank onto the couch. I couldn't stay here. I had to leave, but where was safe? I glanced at my laptop, the screen still displaying the family tree I had been working on. The names stared back at me, taunting me. I had to know the truth, but at what cost? Just then, a loud bang echoed through my apartment. I leaped up, eyes wide. Something had smashed against my door. My chest felt tight. I realized then that I had crossed a line. Whatever was out there was coming for me. I took a deep breath, ready to confront whatever lay on the other side, when suddenly everything went dark. I blinked, trying to adjust to the sudden darkness. Panic surged through me, thick and suffocating. My heart pounded loud enough that I could feel it in my throat. I fumbled for my phone, praying the battery hadn't died. It was my only source of light. Finally, I found it and swiped the screen. The glow illuminated my apartment, casting long shadows. Everything looked normal, but my instincts screamed that something was off. I stepped cautiously toward the door, my breath trembling in my chest as I listened for any sound. Then I heard it again, the soft scratching. This time, it was coming from inside the apartment. I froze, blood running cold. I was not alone. "Who's there?" I shouted, forcing a steadiness into my voice. Silence met my challenge. I looked down the darkened hallway, feeling every muscle in my body tense. I moved toward the kitchen, where I had left a knife out earlier. It was a small comfort, but I needed something. Just as I reached for the blade, a whisper cut through the air, clear and sharp. "Emily!" It was the same voice from before. My blood ran ice cold. "Go away!" I yelled, stepping back. I could feel my legs shaking. Instead of retreating, I forced myself to move deeper into my apartment, the knife gripped tightly in my hand. A chilling breeze swept over me, causing the light to flicker. I turned, expecting to see something behind me, but there was nothing. I cursed under my breath, trying to steady my nerves. Why couldn't I just run away? This was what nightmares were made of. I remembered the library's index of names, especially the woman who had disappeared. What if my family's past was coming back to haunt me? My mind raced with questions. What if this was just the beginning? As if in response, the lights flickered again, then went out completely. A knot of fear twisted in my stomach. In the pitch dark, I could hear my own breathing, quick and shallow. I had to get out. I moved toward the front door, easing the knife into my pocket. The scratching had stopped, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I grasped the doorknob, but it wouldn't budge. I twisted it again, panic rising as I realized I was trapped. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed behind me, stifling my breath. I turned around, heart racing once more. A shadow shifted in the corner, moving quickly across the wall. I squinted, trying to focus in the darkness. Then I caught sight of something on the floor. A piece of paper. Fear gripping me tight, I knelt down to grab it. The dim light of my phone flickered back on, just long enough for me to read a single word. Run. Everything inside of me screamed to obey. I pushed against the door again, desperation fueling my strength. With one final heave, it swung open. I didn't look back as I bolted into the night, wondering if I was running away from something or toward a destiny I could never comprehend. My heart raced, but now it was me against the world, and I was determined to uncover the truth. I stumbled into the street, the cool night air hitting me like a shock. I felt exposed, vulnerable, yet adrenaline pushed me forward. My heart raced, not just from fear, but from the insatiable need to uncover what was happening. I had to think clearly. I glanced up and down the street, looking for someone, anyone, who might help me. There was no one, just the distant hum of soft city life, blissfully unaware of my crisis. My apartment felt like a cage now, and I knew I couldn't go back. I took off down the street, moving blindly at first, but I forced myself to focus. The library. I needed to return to where it all began. Maybe there were more answers waiting for me among the old books and dusty shelves. I had to at least try. As I turned the corner, I noticed shadows flickering in the distance. Were they moving closer? My instincts kicked in, and I ducked into an alley. I pressed my back against the cold brick wall, breathing heavily, straining to listen. The scratching sound returned, but this time it was joined by hushed voices. I peeked around the corner and squinted. A group of 3 people stood near my apartment building, their faces obscured in the shadow. They were pointing. I held my breath, praying they didn't see me. "This is the place," one of them said, a woman with dark hair. "We need to find her before it's too late." The words sent chills down my spine. They were looking for me? I didn't know whether to run or stay put. My instincts screamed danger, and I clutched the knife still tucked in my pocket, the cold metal giving me a small measure of comfort. I had to act. I turned quietly and made my way deeper into the alley, trying to stay out of sight. I needed a safe place to think. I spotted a door that led into what appeared to be an old supply shed. I darted toward it, grateful it didn't creak when I pushed it open. I slipped inside, closing the door gently behind me. Inside, the darkness swallowed me whole. I hesitated, listening for any sounds outside, but there was nothing. I fumbled for my phone, hoping to get some light, but the battery was nearly dead. Panic surged again. Then I reminded myself that I had the knife and I was still alive. I felt around the shed, looking for anything I could use. My fingers brushed against something wooden. I pulled it out and realized it was a sturdy old broom. I could use it as a makeshift weapon. Just as I thought things might calm down, I heard the door to the shed slam open. My stomach dropped. I pressed myself against the wall, holding the broom tightly. I couldn't see who it was yet, but I wasn't going to let fear take me down. I braced myself, ready for whatever or whoever was about to step into my life, completely uninvited. That's when I saw the glint of light reflecting off something in their hand. I wasn't sure whether to fight or flee. I held my breath, my heart pounding in my ears as the figure moved slowly into the shed. The light danced around the room, illuminating bits of clutter and dust that had settled over the years. I could see enough to make out a tall silhouette, a man with dark clothes. He held a small flashlight in one hand and something else, a narrow blade, in the other. My grip on the broom tightened. "Is anyone in here?" he called out, his voice firm but edged with uncertainty. "I won't ask twice." I swallowed hard, weighing my options. If I stayed quiet, maybe he would leave. But the risk of being discovered loomed like a storm cloud. I glanced at the unlatched door behind him. If I could just make a break for it. Before I could make a decision, he stepped further inside, his light sweeping the shed. My instinct kicked in. I couldn't just wait to see what he would do. If I was going to get out of this mess, I needed to take action. "Who are you?" I shouted, trying to sound braver than I felt. "What do you want?" He froze, the beam of light fixing on my face. For a brief moment, surprise flickered in his eyes. "You're the one we've been looking for," he said, his voice softening. "We need to talk." My mind raced. Why would he be looking for me? "Talk? Is that what you call it?" I replied, lifting the broom defensively. I'm not interested in a conversation. His eyebrows knit together, and for a second I thought he might laugh. Instead, he took a cautious step closer. Look, I don't want to hurt you, but there are things happening, things that you don't understand. My heart sank at his words. What could possibly be happening that I didn't know? Then explain. Now, I demanded, trying to regain control of the situation while knowing the knife was still within reach. He paused, running a hand through his hair, as if gathering his thoughts. Your DNA test, last month's results, it led to some strange discoveries. People are in danger because they want to keep it quiet. We need to get you out of here. Danger? I echoed, my voice shaking. What does my DNA have to do with anything? Before he could respond, I heard footfalls outside the shed, more than one pair. My pulse quickened. I pressed against the wall, the broom across my body like a shield. Stay quiet, he whispered. We have to move, now. I glanced at the door, my only escape route, but I wasn't sure what was waiting for me out there. The voices grew louder, a mix of urgency and purpose. My options had narrowed down to two: trust him or take my chances alone. Just then, the door rattled as someone jolted it from the outside. She's in there! A woman's voice shouted, sending ice through my veins. The man turned to me, his eyes wide. We need to go! They're coming! That's when everything went dark. I jolted awake, my senses assaulted by the musty smell of the shed and the cold, hard ground beneath me. I blinked against the darkness, trying to make sense of what had happened. The man was gone, and the muffled voices outside now seemed distant. My pulse raced as I searched the dimness for any sign of movement. I sat up slowly, careful not to make a sound. My heart thudded louder than I wanted it to. I remembered the woman's voice from outside. She had called out, desperate. Did they know who I was? Why were they looking for me? I rose cautiously, my legs shaky but determined. I needed answers. Why had that man wanted to help me? What was in those DNA results? There had to be something, anything, that could explain the chaos that had just enveloped me. I shuffled toward the door, not wanting to risk being seen if anyone was still outside. My hands fumbled for the latch, and I held my breath. The shed was silent now, but my mind was racing. What if that man came back and I wasn't ready? Just as I pushed against the door, I heard footsteps again. This time, they sounded closer. I froze, a bead of sweat trickling down my back. Any second now, and I would either walk into danger or face whatever awaited me behind that door. Suddenly, the sound of wood creaking startled me. I turned to see the light from the flashlight sweeping back toward the shed. My stomach dropped. Had he come back? It was the same beam, shining in through the cracks. Hello? A voice called, low and cautious. Is anyone in there? It was him. I couldn't relax, though. I had to know what he wanted, if I could trust him. Are you alone? I called back, my voice trembling. There was a pause. Yes, but we have to hurry. They're searching the area. I hesitated again. He didn't sound threatening. Besides, there was nowhere else to go. I opened the door and stepped out, still clutching the broom. The night air was crisp, and I could see his anxious frame silhouetted against the pale moonlight. Good, you're safe for now, he said, as he quickly took a step back, guiding me away from the shed. But they could be here any minute. Who are they? I pressed, glancing around anxiously. And what do you know about the DNA tests? His face fell, shadows flickering across his features. I can explain later. Just know they want to silence you because of what you are. You have to trust me. Trust is a big ask, I replied, uncertainty bubbling inside me. But the urgency in his tone made me feel cornered. I had to make a choice. Look, we can't stand here talking. You've seen too much already, he urged, scanning the shadows as if expecting someone to emerge at any moment. I stole a quick glance back at the shed. My home was becoming a prison, and I felt the walls closing in, But then everything shifted again. An engine roared to life in the distance. "Get down!" he hissed, pulling me into the thick underbrush beside the shed. My heart raced, adrenaline flooding my veins. As we crouched in the shadows, my mind reeled. I didn't know what lay ahead or who was chasing us, but one thing was clear. I was no longer just running from my past. I was entangled in something much bigger than myself. Then, I heard voices shouting and the clatter of footsteps approaching. "She couldn't have gotten far," a man bellowed. That's when I realized the chase was only beginning. We waited, breathless and still, as the footsteps grew louder. My heart thumped in my chest like a drum. Whoever was out there was getting closer, and I felt the weight of fear settle heavily on my shoulders. My instinct was to run, but the stranger clutched my arm, keeping me rooted in place. "Just a little longer," he whispered, his gaze locked on the opening of the underbrush. "They'll pass." I could hear them more clearly now, snippets of conversation and urgency. "Check the shed again," one voice said. "She has to be nearby. We can't let her slip through our fingers." A wave of dread washed over me. Who were they? What did they want from me? I could feel the stranger's grip tighten on my arm, and I knew he was just as afraid. But something in his eyes told me he might hold the key to understanding my situation. After what felt like an eternity, the voices faded into the distance. The engine noise also softened, replaced instead by the chirping of crickets. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. Are we safe?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "For now," he replied, easing his hold on me. "But we can't stay here. We need to find a place to hide, somewhere they won't think to look." "Who are they?" I asked again, needing clarity now more than ever. "What do they want?" He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in his expression. "They're after people like you, people with special ties to something bigger than any of us." "What does that mean?" I was losing patience. "What special ties? And my DNA?" He hesitated. "Your DNA holds answers about who you are, but those answers could put your life in danger." I struggled to process his words. Special ties? What was so important about me? I recalled the results I had been afraid to read. What if they revealed something that put a target on my back? Ignoring my unease, I straightened. "Then let's figure this out. I won't just run. There has to be a way to fight back." He gave me a hard look. "It's not that simple. You need to understand there are forces at play here that you can't fight alone." Before I could respond, the engine roared to life again, cutting through the night. The voices returned, but this time they sounded more frantic. "Split up and widen the search. She can't have gone far." "We have to move," he urged, pulling me up from the ground. "This way." We ducked under branches and darted through the underbrush. Every sound felt amplified, a crack of twigs, the rustle of leaves. I tried to keep my breathing steady, but panic clawed at my chest. Just as we reached the edge of the woods, I spotted a flicker of movement just ahead. My heart sank. There were figures silhouetted against the moonlight, scanning the trees with flashlights. "Damn it," he muttered under his breath, pulling me behind a thick trunk just in time. My mind raced as I caught sight of a familiar face among them, a woman in a dark jacket, the same one who had been crying out before. "She's out here! I know it!" That recognition unleashed a rush of unresolved emotions. I wanted to call out to her, to beg her to help, but it felt too risky. Then I noticed something glinting in the dirt at my feet. I bent down, my heart racing. It was a small metallic object, half buried. I picked it up, realizing what it was. That's when I saw it, the key to everything I didn't understand. As I held the small metallic object in my palm, its coolness sent shivers darting up my arm. It was a key, but not just any key. It had a strange symbol engraved on it, something I had never seen before. My heart raced as I wondered what it unlocked. "Where did you find that?" the stranger asked, his voice low with urgency. I glanced at him, the seriousness of the moment sinking in. I don't know. It was just here. I could hardly think straight, my mind spinning with questions. Who had left it? Was it connected to me? We need to keep moving, he insisted, but curiosity gripped me. What if it can help us? What if it opens a door to answers we need? Answers won't matter if they find us, he snapped, pulling my attention back to the encroaching danger. The figures were getting closer. I had to decide, act fast or risk everything. With a reluctant nod, I slipped the key into my pocket. Okay, let's go, but we have to find out what it's for. He led me deeper into the woods, away from the searching figures and the light of their flashlights. The night wrapped around us like a blanket, thick with tension. My heart still raced, each quickened pulse reminding me of how precarious our situation was. We stumbled through the underbrush, adrenaline pushing us further until we finally reached a tangled patch of trees. We can hide out here for a bit, he whispered, motioning for me to crouch down. The foliage provided some coverage, but the shadows felt alive, and I couldn't shake the sense of being watched. Why do they want me? I dared to ask, breaking the suffocating silence. What's so special about who I am? Let's just say some people believe you're tied to something powerful, something they want to control, he replied, casting a wary glance over his shoulder. Your DNA, your very existence could change things for them. That's why they're desperate to find you. I swallowed hard, grappling with fear and uncertainty. But how can I be linked to something powerful? I'm just me. Exactly, he said, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. And that makes you incredibly dangerous in their eyes. Before I could absorb this new information, shouts echoed in the distance. The search party was drawing closer, and panic surged within me. What now? I breathed out, feeling truly trapped. We find that door, he said suddenly, the determination in his eyes igniting a flicker of hope in me. If that key has a purpose, it's our best chance to escape. We started moving again, but this time with more purpose. Dodging through the undergrowth, I felt the weight of the key pulling on my pocket. I had no idea where we were headed or what awaited us, but running felt like my only option. As the shouts grew more intense, we rounded a large bush and stumbled upon a small clearing. My breath hitched. Before us stood an old, abandoned cabin, its door hanging ajar as if beckoning us inside. Could this be it? I wondered aloud, feeling the weight of the moment. But as we approached, I spotted movement in the shadows of the cabin. Someone was inside. Panic filled my chest. What if it's them? Then we face them, he replied resolutely. But we can't let this opportunity slip away. With a silent nod, I felt a surge of bravery. We moved toward the cabin, and I pulled the key out of my pocket, my heartbeat quickening. I had no idea what lay ahead, but I felt closer to finding the answers I desperately needed. That's when I realized every answer might come with a price. As we crept toward the cabin, my heart was pounding in my ears. The door swung slightly on its hinges, creaking softly as if inviting us to enter. I kept the key clutched tightly in my hand, feeling its cold surface against my palm. Go slow, the stranger cautioned, his voice barely more than a whisper. I nodded and pushed the door open a little wider. The dim light spilling in from the outside barely illuminated the room. Dust motes danced in the air, and I could smell the damp wood and decay. The shadows seemed alive, flicking back and forth in a way that made my skin crawl. Is anyone in here? I called, irritation bubbling up. Show yourself. Shh, he hissed, placing a hand on my arm. I realized my bravado might have been foolish. I watched him scan the interior. His eyes narrowed. That wasn't smart, he said, sounding genuinely worried. Sorry, I muttered, stepping cautiously inside. My instincts screamed at me to be careful. But there had to be something here. The key needed a door, right? We stepped further into the cabin, glancing around. Old furniture was scattered haphazardly, and the walls were covered with peeling wallpaper that whispered of long-past lives. A faint light flickered from a corner. My breath caught as I noticed a trapdoor partially hidden beneath layers of debris. "That," I whispered, pointing at it, "could be what we need." He moved toward the trapdoor, but before he could reach it, a noise echoed from the back of the cabin. It sounded like shuffling. We froze. "Someone is in here," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Hide," he ordered, and we scrambled behind an old dresser, hearts pounding as we pressed ourselves against the wall. A low murmur hovered in the air, and I strained to hear the words. They were indistinct, muffled, but definitely there. "Must find her before it's too late," a voice said, urgent and sharp. "Who are they looking for?" I murmured, my stomach dropping as a chilling realization struck me. "Us," he replied grimly. "They think you hold the key to something big. We need to get out before they find us." Suddenly, the cabin door burst open and light flooded the room. Shadows shifted and contorted, revealing figures silhouetted against the night. "Search everywhere! She's here!" The voice was harsh, demanding. I could feel my pulse racing, panic clawing at my throat. I couldn't think. I glanced at the stranger. "What do we do?" "We have to get to that trap door," he said, determination flashing in his eyes. Moving as quietly as possible, we edged closer to it, the voices growing louder. Then, just as we reached the edge of the trap door, one of the figures caught sight of us. "There!" the person yelled, pointing directly at us. I gasped, adrenaline surging through every nerve. "Go!" I shouted as we lunged for the trap door. The stranger yanked it open. I had no idea what lay beneath, but without a second thought, I dove in. Then everything went dark. I landed hard on a cold concrete floor, the breath knocked out of me as darkness enveloped everything. I rolled to my side, gasping as the stranger fell beside me. "Are you all right?" he whispered urgently, his voice barely audible in the thick darkness. "I think so," I managed, slowly pushing myself up. My heart hammered in my chest, the adrenaline still coursing through my veins. The trapdoor slammed shut above us, plunging the space into an intense silence, punctuated only by the heavy thud of our heartbeats. "What is this place?" I asked, trying to adjust my eyes to the blackness. "It's a basement, maybe an old storage area," he replied, glancing around. "We need to keep quiet. They'll be searching for us above." As I pushed myself to my feet, I could feel the dampness in the air and the musty smell of earth surrounding us. I tried to feel my way along the wall, searching for any signs of light or escape. "Do you think they'll find us?" I whispered, the uncertainty threatening to pierce through my bravado. "I don't know. But we need to think about how to get out of here before they do," he said, tension lacing his voice. I moved cautiously forward, feeling the contours of the room. My fingers brushed against what felt like crates. I took a step back, ensuring I was still in earshot. "What do they want with me?" I murmured, the weight of the situation crashing down around me. "I told you, people believe you're tied to something powerful. They want to control it, but if you're alive, they'll risk everything to find you," he said, his voice steady but edged with urgency. A flicker of hope surged within me. "Who are they?" I pressed, needing details as fragments of unease settled like stones in my stomach. "Just people who don't want the truth to come out," he replied, frustration evident. "Trust me, we'll figure this out, but we need to keep moving. They won't stop looking." I nodded, feeling my way forward until I bumped into something. The sound echoed in the stillness. I gasped, pulling back. "What's in here?" He felt around and paused. "It looks like an old storage space. There must be a way out." My fear ignited another surge of urgency. "But how? We can't stay in this dark forever." "Keep searching. There's a reason we're down here. That key you found might open a door or something," he reminded me. Then I heard it. A faint scrapping sound echoing from above, followed by faint voices growing louder. They had returned. My stomach twisted in fear. "Quick, check over there," he urged, gesturing to a corner filled with shadows. We both grabbed a crate, tipping it over to reveal an old, rusted door barely visible against the wall behind debris. "Maybe this," I started, heart racing, but then the upper door thudded open, light spilling in. "The trap door, she has to be in here." The voices shook me, sending a chill skittering down my spine. "There!" one of them shouted, the light blinding as it swept across the room, illuminating our hiding spot. "Go!" he shouted, rushing toward the door. I fumbled with the key, my hands shaking uncontrollably. I shoved it into the lock on the door. Nothing. My breath sputtered as I twisted harder, the sound of shouting getting louder. "Emily, hurry!" he panicked, and suddenly the door burst open, flooding the room with light and revealing figures silhouetted against the doorway. With a quick flick, I turned the key again and heard a gratifying click. The door creaked open, revealing a tunnel leading away from the chaos. "Now!" he shouted, pushing me inside as I scrambled through. We raced through the darkness of the tunnel, my legs moving faster than my mind could process. Just ahead loomed a sliver of light, but I could hear the footsteps behind us, the adrenaline pushing me to run even faster. "Emily, keep going," he urged, barely able to keep pace. As we neared the light, it became blinding, illuminating an exit that felt like salvation. I burst through and stumbled forward into the night, crashing against cool grass. A sudden rush of freedom enveloped me. "We made it!" I gasped, taking in the sky above, the stars twinkling. But the moment was short-lived. Looking back, I caught sight of the figures emerging from the tunnel, glowing flashlights in their hands. My chest tightened at the realization that this wasn't over. "Run!" he hollered as we took off into the trees, the haunting weight of uncertainty trailing close behind. I didn't know if I was running toward safety or deeper into danger, but one thing was certain. I was no longer just a victim of my circumstances. I had stepped into a shadowy world that felt alive, teeming with unanswered questions. What did my DNA really hold? And what dark truths were waiting just beyond the next turn? I moved forward, adrenaline driving me deeper into the night, uncertain of what lay ahead, but confident of only one thing. I could never go back.